When I married Leah, I truly believed we had something real, something strong enough to survive whatever challenges life might throw at us. We had been through tough times before, those struggles that test a relationship, and once you get through them together, it only makes you stronger. I was proud of our journey and convinced that we were unbreakable. That's why, when I started noticing changes in Leah's behavior, it was impossible to accept. At first, I dismissed it, thinking it was just stress or exhaustion from her demanding job. But as the weeks passed, her late nights and secret texts became too frequent to ignore. Leah and I met nearly 10 years ago, and from the start, I felt something special about her. There was a spark, a depth to her that pulled me in completely. We built our lives together, supporting each other through career changes, family struggles, and all the ups and downs that come with being together for years. She was my partner in every sense of the word. I believed I had found someone who would always stand by me, someone I could trust completely. So, when I noticed her becoming distant, when the secrecy started, I couldn't believe it. I refused to accept that something was wrong, clinging to the idea that she would never hurt me. One evening, after another late night when she came home, I finally confronted her. I hoped she'd laugh it off, tell me I was overreacting, that I was just imagining things and that everything was fine. But instead, she sighed, looked at me with an unreadable expression, and admitted it. She confessed she had been seeing someone else. But instead of feeling sorry or remorseful, she shrugged, as if it didn't matter. "It's just casual," she said, as though it was no different from grabbing coffee with a friend. Those words hit me harder than anything else could. Casual? As if a relationship wasn't worth respecting. Trying to process what she had just said, I asked a question I wasn't sure I was ready to hear the answer to. "Did you sleep with him?" I asked, almost afraid of what I might hear. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded, almost reluctantly, as though she knew she had to tell the truth. "Only twice," she said. "It's not much." I felt a surge of anger rise in me. "Not much," I repeated, almost laughing at the absurdity of it. Did she really think minimizing the number of times would make the betrayal hurt any less? I looked at her, hoping to see some sign of regret, some flicker of understanding about how serious this was. But instead, she kept brushing it off. She insisted it wasn't a big deal, that she wasn't planning to leave me, and that it was just a distraction. She genuinely thought calling it a phase or a fling would make it easier for me to accept, as if that somehow lessened the hurt. But the worst part, the most painful part of all, wasn't even the affair itself. It was her tone. She was cold, detached, like she was explaining something trivial, like a minor inconvenience. She made it seem like I was the one overreacting, as if our marriage wasn't worthy of respect. I couldn't understand how she could look at me, knowing everything we had built together, and feel so little remorse. The way she dismissed everything we had shared made me question everything. Was our entire relationship a lie? Had she always been this callous, this capable of discarding me when it suited her? I thought about all the memories we had created together. The vacations, the quiet nights at home, the plans we had made for the future. It felt like I had been living in a dream, a carefully crafted illusion that shattered in an instant. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I knew I needed space to think, but I also knew that something fundamental between us had broken. Over the next few days, as I wrestled with sleepless nights and endless thoughts, I realized I could never look at her the same way again. Our marriage felt hollow, tainted, built on shaky ground I hadn't noticed before. I replayed her words over and over in my head, each time feeling a fresh wave of pain and anger. Finally, I told her I wanted a divorce. At first, she seemed shocked, as though she hadn't considered that her choices might lead to real consequences. She tried to talk me out of it, saying she loved me, that it wouldn't happen again. But it was too late. Her words had taken something irreplaceable from us, a trust that couldn't be rebuilt. In her eyes, I saw the realization dawn. This wasn't something I would simply forgive and forget. She had expected me to get over it, to dismiss her betrayal the way she had. But I knew there was no going back. Months passed, and I began to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I felt a strange sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. Free from the constant doubts and pain her actions had left me with. I focused on rediscovering myself, reconnecting with old friends, and pursuing passions I had long set aside. Slowly, the weight of the betrayal lifted, replaced by a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. Just when I thought I was truly moving on, she called me, asking to meet. She said she had things to clarify. Curious, I agreed. When we met, she looked different, nervous, remorseful, not at all like the woman who had brushed off her betrayal so casually. She told me she regretted everything, that she missed me, and that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. She pleaded, promising to do anything to make things right. But as I watched her speak, all I could think about was that moment when she had shrugged off the affair, calling it just casual, as if our love was disposable, something she could easily set aside. In that moment, I knew that as much as I had once loved her, there was no going back. Too much had been said. Too much trust had been broken. I couldn't erase the memory of her detached response, how little my pain had seemed to matter to her at the time. I told her that some things couldn't be undone or forgotten, and this was one of them. Then I walked away, and this time I didn't look back. As I left, I felt a deep sense of closure. I knew I had done everything I could, and now I was ready to move forward, to build a future on my own terms, one free from betrayal and doubt.